A struggling rancher meets a too-fat black bride abandoned at the mail station. He married her that day, but not before witnessing the cruel laughter of townsfolk who declared her unmarriageable and destined for disgrace. The woman sits with dignified silence despite their mockery, clutching surveyor documents instead of love letters. The dust-covered rancher approaches not from pity, but desperation. His failing ranch needs a miracle, and she possesses mysterious knowledge that could save or destroy them both. Their hasty marriage binds two outcasts against a hidden enemy, systematically stealing his cattle and manipulating his ruin, someone who knows the true value of his land. Together they must uncover a conspiracy that threatens not just their survival, but their chance at proving that worth isn't measured by others' cruel judgments. Can two underestimated souls forge a partnership strong enough to expose the powerful forces working to crush them? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The wagon wheels creaked against the dusty ground as Ransom Cole pulled up to the mail station. His horse snorted, tired from the long ride into Dusty Junction. The animal looked as worn as Ransom felt. 60 days. That's all the bank had given him before they took his father's ranch. A crowd had gathered near the station platform. Their voices carried on the desert wind, laughter mixed with cruel whispers. Ransom tied his horse to the post and walked toward the commotion. A woman sat on a wooden bench, her back straight despite the mockery surrounding her. She wore a clean traveling dress and held a leather satchel on her lap. Her dark skin glistened with sweat from the Colorado sun. The townspeople pointed and snickered. "Came all the way from Kansas for nothing," the mail clerk announced to anyone who would listen. Groom took one look and rode off, left her sitting right there. "Can't say I blame him," someone muttered. The woman never looked up. She pulled papers from her satchel and studied them with intense focus. Ransom noticed they weren't letters or personal documents. They looked like land surveys. "What's she gonna do now?" a woman in the crowd asked. "Probably starve," another replied. "Ain't got money for a ticket home." The abandoned bride's fingers traced lines on the document. Her lips moved silently as if calculating something. When the mail clerk walked past, she spoke without raising her head. "Your shipping calculations are wrong. You charged that gentleman $3 too much." The clerk stopped. He checked his ledger. His face reddened. He returned the overcharge without a word. Ransom stepped closer. The woman's composure impressed him. She faced humiliation with dignity he'd rarely seen. Something about her steady demeanor reminded him of his father. The old man never panicked, even when the cattle market crashed. "Ma'am," Ransom said quietly. She looked up. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, not the eyes of someone defeated. "You need help?" The crowd fell silent. They stared at the dusty rancher who dared approach the rejected bride. "Depends what kind of help you're offering," she replied. "The practical kind. I'm Ransom Cole. I own a ranch outside town. Inherited it from my father. Callista Boone. I was supposed to marry a man named Henderson. He changed his mind. His loss. You have somewhere to go?" "Not currently." Ransom studied her hands. No calluses from housework, but ink stains on her fingers. Educated hands. The surveyor papers made more sense now. "I need a partner more than a wife. Ranch is failing. Bank wants their money in 60 days. You need a home. Seems like we could help each other." Callista set down her papers. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Marriage. Today. Legal partnership. We save the ranch together or lose it together." The crowd gasped. Someone laughed nervously. Others shook their heads in disbelief. "You don't know me," Callista said. "I know you're smart enough to catch arithmetic errors and brave enough to travel alone to Colorado territory. That's more than most folks can claim." Callista studied his face. She saw desperation, but also determination. This wasn't pity. This was business. "What makes you think I can help save your ranch?" "Those surveyor maps you're reading. Most brides carry love letters. You carry land documents. That tells me something. I taught mathematics back in Kansas. Helped my father survey property before he died. Lost our land when someone cheated us out of it." Ransom nodded. Then you understand what's at stake. The courthouse sat 3 blocks away. Judge Morrison handled marriages every Tuesday. Today was Tuesday. If we do this, Callista said, it's a real partnership. Equal say in decisions. Agreed. She gathered her papers. Then let's go save a ranch. The ceremony took 10 minutes. Judge Morrison seemed confused, but completed the legal requirements. 2 witnesses signed the papers. Ransom and Callista Cole walked out of the courthouse as husband and wife. The ride to the ranch took 2 hours. Callista studied the landscape with professional interest. She noted water sources, soil quality, and natural boundaries. Her questions revealed knowledge that surprised Ransom. How many head of cattle? She asked. Should be 200. Been losing some lately. To drought or predators? Neither. They just disappear. Callista made a mental note. Cattle didn't vanish without cause. The ranch house came into view. Modest but sturdy. The barn needed repairs. Fencing looked weak in several places. She counted maybe 50 cattle in the visible pasture. You said 200 head. The rest are in the north pasture. Inside the house, Callista examined the account books. Her mathematical training revealed problems immediately. Numbers didn't add up. Cattle counts changed without corresponding. Sales records. Feed purchases exceeded the number of animals they claimed to own. Ransom. These books show systematic losses. Someone's been stealing your cattle. That's impossible. I would have noticed. Not if they took small numbers regularly. 5 head here, 3 there. Spread over months, it looks like natural attrition. She showed him the patterns. Missing cattle coincided with specific dates. Always when Ransom traveled to town for supplies. Someone knew his schedule. Who else knows when you leave the ranch? Most of the town, I suppose. I come in every 2 weeks. A knock interrupted their conversation. Ransom opened the door to find Luther Devereaux and 2 of his men. Devereaux owned the largest spread in the county. His wealth and influence made him untouchable. Heard you got married today, Cole. Congratulations. Devereaux's eyes lingered on Callista with obvious disdain. What do you want, Luther? Come to make another offer on your land. Generous one, considering your circumstances. Not interested. Bank says different. Heard you got 60 days before foreclosure. Callista noticed how well Devereaux knew the property. His men's eyes swept the ranch with familiarity. They'd been here before. The lady seems smart, Devereaux continued. Maybe she can talk sense into you. Take my offer while it stands. After Devereaux left, Callista shared her observations. The men knew too much about the ranch layout. Their boots showed dust from the north pasture. They'd been watching the property. I think we found our cattle thieves. Dawn broke over the ranch as Callista spread surveyor maps across the kitchen table. Her father's compass and measuring tools lay beside ledgers filled with calculations. Ransom watched her work with growing amazement. These property lines don't match the county records, she said, tracing boundaries with her finger. Someone's been surveying your land without permission. She pulled out a notebook filled with precise handwriting. Mathematical formulas covered the margins. Her system for tracking the missing cattle revealed a pattern that chilled Ransom's blood. Every theft happens on market days when you're in town. They take exactly the number that won't be noticed immediately. Professional operation. How do you know all this? My father taught me surveying when I was 12. Said land was the only thing that lasted. When crooked men stole our farm, I swore I'd never let it happen again. Callista had spent her childhood learning to read topographical maps and calculate property values. Her mathematical mind saw patterns others missed. The stolen cattle weren't random losses. They were calculated moves in a larger game. She organized the financial records into neat columns. Feed costs, veterinary expenses, and equipment purchases painted a clear picture. The ranch should be profitable. Someone was sabotaging their success. We need to visit the north pasture, she said. They rode out at midday. Callista carried her surveying equipment and a detailed map of the property. The north pasture stretched across rolling hills toward a canyon that bordered Devereaux's land. Only 30 cattle grazed where there should have been 70. Fresh hoof prints led toward the canyon. Not the scattered tracks of wandering animals, but the organized pattern of a cattle drive. Callista knelt beside the tracks. Her father had taught her to read signs like a book. These prints told a story of midnight theft and careful planning. 5 horses, shod for hard travel. They drove the cattle through that gap in the rocks. The gap led to a hidden trail that wound through the canyon. Fresh manure and trampled grass showed recent use. Someone had been using this route regularly. This trail connects to Devereaux's property, Ransom realized, and to the main cattle road, perfect for moving stolen livestock without being seen. They followed the trail deeper into the canyon. Callista mapped every turn, noting landmarks and natural features. Her surveying skills revealed something that made her blood run cold. "Ransom, look at this." She showed him markings on the canyon walls, survey stakes driven into the ground. Someone had been measuring mineral deposits in the rock faces. This isn't just about cattle. Someone's been testing for silver. Her father's training included basic geology. The rock formations showed signs of valuable ore deposits. If silver existed beneath the ranch, the land's worth increased dramatically. That's why Devereaux wants the property. He knows something we don't. Back at the ranch house, Callista created a detailed map of the theft patterns. Red marks showed where cattle disappeared. Blue lines traced the hidden trails. Green dots marked the survey stakes in the canyon. The pattern revealed a sophisticated operation. Devereaux wasn't just stealing cattle. He was systematically driving the ranch toward bankruptcy while secretly surveying for minerals. "We need proof," Callista said. "Evidence the law can't ignore." She spent the evening calculating the true value of their losses. Her mathematical precision revealed theft worth nearly $3,000, enough to save the ranch if recovered. The next morning brought Deputy Blanchard to their door. The lawman's skeptical expression showed his opinion before he spoke. "Heard you folks are making accusations against Luther Devereaux." Callista presented her evidence, maps, calculations, and physical proof of the hidden cattle trails. Blanchard glanced at the papers without real interest. "Math and drawings don't prove theft. Need witnesses or physical evidence. The survey stakes in the canyon are physical evidence. Could belong to anybody. Devereaux's got mining rights on his own land. Maybe the stakes are on his side of the boundary." After Blanchard left, Callista realized they faced more than simple theft. Devereaux had influence with local law enforcement. Traditional justice wouldn't help them. "We need a different approach," she told Ransom. That weekend, the town held its monthly social dance. Most ranchers attended to discuss business and catch up on news. Callista suggested they go despite knowing the reception would be hostile. She wore her best dress and held her head high as they entered the community hall. Conversations stopped. Eyes followed their movement across the room. The whispers began immediately. "Look at Cole's new wife. Poor man must be desperate. She's even bigger than I heard." Callista ignored the cruel comments. She focused on observing the attendees. Social gatherings revealed alliances and enemies, information that could help their cause. When the music started, Ransom asked her to dance. Several couples stepped aside, making their disapproval obvious. Callista danced with dignity, refusing to let their prejudice diminish her. During a break between songs, she overheard important conversation. 2 of Devereaux's men discussing plans for the following week. They mentioned the North Canyon and moving livestock before the next full moon. "Did you hear that?" she whispered to Ransom. "Every word. They're planning another theft." As they prepared to leave, Luther Devereaux approached. His smile held no warmth. His words carried barely concealed threats. "Enjoying the festivities, Mrs. Cole?" "Very much, thank you. Hope you're settling in well. Ranch life can be dangerous for folks who don't understand the territory." Callista met his gaze without flinching. "I understand perfectly, Mr. Devereaux. Mathematics teaches you to see patterns others miss. Mathematics won't help when the bank forecloses. We'll see about that." The ride home passed in thoughtful silence. Callista's mind processed everything she'd observed. Devereaux's confidence suggested he knew something they didn't. His timeline for their failure seemed very specific. "He's planning something bigger than cattle theft," she told Ransom. "The bank foreclosure, the mineral surveys, the systematic theft, it's all connected. What do you think he's really after?" "Our land, and I think I know why." The county records office smelled of dust and old paper. Callista spent 3 days searching through property deeds and mineral surveys. Her trained eye caught details others overlooked. The truth lay buried in decades of legal documents. She found the original territorial survey from 1875. The map showed significant silver deposits running beneath 3 properties. The coal ranch sat directly over the richest vein. Her hands trembled as she traced the mineral lines with her finger. "Found something important," she told Ransom that evening. The mineral survey revealed why Devereaux wanted their land so desperately. Silver ore worth hundreds of thousands of dollars lay beneath their property. The cattle ranch was worthless compared to the treasure underground. "He's been planning this for years," Callista said, spreading the documents across their kitchen table. "Look at these property acquisitions." She showed Ransom a pattern that chilled his blood. Every ranch Devereaux had purchased in the past 5 years sat over the same silver vein. Each previous owner had faced mysterious financial problems before selling. The Henderson Place, the Morrison Spread, the old Williams Ranch, all the same story. Cattle disappeared, equipment broke, banks called in loans early. "How did you figure this out?" "Mathematics never lies. The pattern repeats exactly. Financial pressure, forced sale, immediate mining operations." Callista had cross-referenced bank records with property transfers. The timing was too precise to be coincidental. Someone with influence was orchestrating these bankruptcies. More cattle vanished during the night. 15 head from the south pasture. The thieves grew bolder as their deadline approached. Only 20 days remained before the bank foreclosed. Callista tracked the fresh hoofprints to a different canyon. This trail led directly to Devereaux's property without any attempt at concealment. The thieves no longer cared about hiding their activities. "They know we can't stop them," Ransom said. "Maybe we can't stop the theft, but we can gather proof." She spent the next week documenting every piece of evidence. Photographs of the hidden trails using her father's old camera, detailed maps showing the survey stakes, mathematical calculations proving the systematic nature of the theft. Her investigation revealed the scope of Devereaux's operation. He controlled the bank president, the deputy sheriff, and several county officials. His network made traditional legal challenges impossible. "We need federal help," Callista concluded. "This crosses state lines if he's selling stolen cattle in other territories." But federal marshals rarely visited small towns like Dusty Junction. By the time they arrived, the ranch would be lost. The bank delivered their final notice: 15 days to pay the full mortgage or face immediate foreclosure. The amount seemed impossible to raise through legitimate cattle sales. "Unless we can recover our stolen herd," Callista said. She calculated their remaining assets with mathematical precision. 43 cattle remained on the property. Market price would bring $800. They needed $3,000 to satisfy the bank. What about the cattle they stole? Over 150 head, worth more than enough to save the ranch. Proving ownership would be difficult without witnesses. Devereaux's men would claim the cattle belonged to their boss. The local law would support his version. Callista studied the territorial maps again. A different plan began forming in her mind. Instead of fighting the system, they could work around it. "There's a cattle market in Denver. Federal territory. Different jurisdiction. Denver's 4 days through the mountains. Dangerous trip. This time of year. More dangerous than losing everything we have?" The plan required perfect timing and considerable risk. They would gather their remaining cattle and drive them to Denver before the foreclosure date. The sale would provide enough money to pay the bank and restart their operation. "What about winter weather?" "The almanac shows clear skies for the next week. We'll have to move fast." Callista's mathematical mind calculated every detail: feed requirements, travel time, route planning, and market conditions. The numbers showed their plan could work with careful execution. They began preparing immediately. Callista organized supplies while Ransom gathered their scattered cattle. The herd was smaller than hoped, but represented their only chance for survival. On the second day of preparation, they spotted riders watching from the hills. Devereaux's men kept constant surveillance now. They made no attempt to hide their presence. "They're waiting for something," Callista observed. "Probably the foreclosure date. Then they can claim everything legally. Or they plan to stop us from reaching Denver." The thought sent ice through Ransom's veins. Devereaux couldn't allow them to succeed. Too much money was at stake. A convenient accident in the mountains would solve his problems permanently. Maybe we should try a different approach. Like what? The law won't help. The bank won't negotiate. Our neighbors think we're troublemakers. Callista's resolve hardened. She'd watched her father lose everything to crooked men. History wouldn't repeat itself if she could prevent it. "We take the cattle to Denver, sell them for top dollar, pay off the mortgage with money to spare. And if Devereaux tries to stop us, then we prove he's been stealing our livestock. Federal marshals will have to listen." They loaded the wagon with supplies that night: salt, coffee, bedrolls, and ammunition. Not for hunting, but for protection against two-legged predators. The cattle drive would begin at dawn. 43 head of longhorn cattle represented their final hope. Success meant saving the ranch and exposing Devereaux's crimes. Failure meant losing everything and possibly their lives. Callista checked her calculations one final time. The numbers added up correctly. Mathematics gave her confidence when everything else seemed uncertain. "Ready?" Ransom asked. "As ready as we can be." The morning star appeared over the eastern mountains. Time to begin their desperate gamble against impossible odds. Dawn cracked cold over the mountains as they drove the cattle toward the high passes. 43 head of longhorns moved steadily through the rocky terrain. Callista rode point while Ransom brought up the rear. Their breath formed white clouds in the thin air. The first day passed without incident. The cattle found their rhythm on the winding trail. Callista's route planning proved accurate. They covered 15 miles through terrain that would challenge experienced drovers. On the second morning, she spotted riders following at a distance. 5 men on horseback keeping pace with their slow-moving herd. The same horses she'd seen watching their ranch preparation. "Devereaux's men," she told Ransom during their noon break. "How long have they been following?" "Since we left the valley. They're staying back, but matching our speed exactly." The presence of armed men changed everything. These weren't casual observers. They had specific orders regarding the cattle drive. None of those orders would benefit the Cole family. Afternoon brought darker clouds rolling over the peaks. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an hour. Callista checked her almanac again. The weather predictions had been wrong. "Storm's coming," Ransom said, studying the sky. "We can't turn back now. Denver's only 2 days ahead." "Better than dying in a blizzard." The first snowflakes began falling as they pushed the herd through a narrow canyon. The cattle grew nervous, sensing the approaching storm. Their pace slowed despite constant urging. Visibility dropped rapidly. Heavy snow turned the familiar trail into a treacherous maze of rocks and hidden crevasses. The cattle bunched together, seeking warmth and security. "Can't see 10 feet ahead," Ransom shouted over the wind. Callista pulled her compass from her coat pocket. Her father's training included navigation in hostile weather. Mathematics and careful observation could guide them through conditions that defeated other travelers. Trail bends north in half a mile. Sheltered valley beyond the ridge. The pursuing riders had vanished in the storm. Either they'd found shelter or continued following despite the dangerous conditions. Callista suspected the latter. Thunder rumbled overhead. The cattle spooked at the sound. Several steers broke from the herd and disappeared into the swirling snow. Precious animals lost to the storm's fury. "Keep them moving," Callista called. "We stop here and we die." The herd struggled through deepening drifts. Snow clung to their faces and built up on their backs. Ice formed around their nostrils, making breathing difficult. Ransom's horse stumbled on hidden rocks. The animal recovered but limped slightly. Another problem added to their growing list of troubles. They couldn't afford to lose their mounts in hostile country. There, Callista pointed through the storm. A gap in the rocks offered temporary shelter. Not perfect protection, but enough to rest the cattle and plan their next move. They drove the herd into the natural corral and dismounted to assess their situation. 27 cattle remained, 16 head lost to the storm or scattered across the mountainside. Their margin for success had evaporated in the blizzard. Not enough cattle left to pay the mortgage, Ransom said. We continue to Denver. 27 head is better than nothing. As she spoke, riders emerged from the storm. 5 men on horseback, rifles across their saddles. Devereaux's crew had found them despite the impossible conditions. Afternoon, folks, the lead rider called. Dangerous weather for a cattle drive. We're managing fine, Callista replied. Don't look fine to me. Lost most of your herd already. The men spread out to surround their small shelter, professional movements that spoke of military experience. These weren't ordinary ranch hands. Shame about them cattle, another rider said. Probably scattered all over the mountain by now. Some might even end up on other folks' property, the leader added. Hard to prove ownership after a storm like this. The threat was clear. The remaining cattle would disappear completely if the Cole family continued toward Denver. Devereaux's men would claim the animals as strays found on public land. You boys should head home, Ransom said. Storm's getting worse. We're going the same direction you are. Might as well travel together. Thunder crashed directly overhead. The cattle panicked at the deafening sound. Several steers bolted from their shelter into the storm. The remaining animals milled frantically in the confined space. More thunder, closer this time. Lightning illuminated the canyon walls in stark detail. The cattle reached their breaking point and stampeded. In the chaos that followed, Callista's horse reared at a lightning strike. The animal threw her from the saddle onto the rocky ground. She rolled to avoid the trampling hooves but struck her head on a boulder. "Callista!" Ransom screamed. The stampeding cattle swept past their shelter. Devereaux's men scattered to avoid being trampled. Shouts and gunshots echoed through the canyon as riders tried to control the panicked animals. Ransom dismounted and ran to where Callista had fallen. Blood stained the snow beside the boulder. Her hat lay trampled in the dirt. No sign of his wife anywhere. "Where is she?" he demanded of Devereaux's men. "Probably went over the cliff with half the cattle," one replied. The canyon edge dropped 200 feet to jagged rocks below. No one could survive that fall. The storm had accomplished what Devereaux's men couldn't do directly. "Should look for her," the leader said without conviction. They searched for an hour through the blinding snow. No trace of Callista anywhere. The cliff face showed fresh breaks where rocks and debris had fallen. The evidence suggested she'd gone over the edge with the stampeding cattle. "Sorry for your loss," Devereaux's man said. "Accidents happen in weather like this." Ransom stared into the swirling snow. His wife had vanished completely. Their cattle were scattered or dead. Their last hope of saving the ranch had died in the storm. The riders departed, driving the few remaining cattle toward Devereaux's property. Legal salvage, they claimed, strays found in public territory during a natural disaster. Ransom rode home alone through the diminishing storm. The ranch house felt empty without Callista's presence. Her surveyor maps still covered the kitchen table. Mathematical calculations that would never be completed. He began planning her funeral service. The woman who'd married him for survival had become the love of his life. Now she was gone, along with their dreams of saving the family ranch. The foreclosure notice waited on his kitchen table. 10 days to pay the mortgage, or lose everything. Without Callista's brilliant mind and the cattle she'd planned to sell, defeat was inevitable. 3 days passed in crushing silence. Ransom moved through the empty house like a ghost. Callista's coffee cup still sat on the kitchen table. Her surveyor maps remained spread across the surface where she'd left them. He couldn't bring himself to put them away. The funeral preparations felt hollow without a body to bury. Reverend Matthews agreed to hold a memorial service. Most of the town would attend out of curiosity rather than respect. Their brief marriage had been the subject of constant gossip. On the 4th morning, Ransom sat at the kitchen table writing Callista's eulogy. Words seemed inadequate to capture her intelligence and courage. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He expected to find the preacher or perhaps a neighbor offering hollow condolences. Instead, a familiar figure stood on his porch. Callista leaned against the doorframe, her clothes torn and muddy. Her face bore cuts and bruises, but her eyes sparkled with fierce determination. "Miss me?" she asked. Ransom pulled her into his arms, hardly believing she was real. Her solid warmth proved she wasn't a ghost, conjured by grief and desperation. She was alive, injured but breathing. "I thought you were dead. Searched everywhere. Takes more than a cliff to stop me. My father taught me to read terrain, remember?" She led him inside and collapsed into a chair. Her ordeal showed in every movement, but her mind remained sharp as ever. She pulled a cloth bundle from her torn coat and placed it on the table. "Found something interesting while I was lost." The bundle contained rock samples that gleamed with silver veins, pure ore that would make any mining engineer weep with joy. Callista's mathematical mind had calculated the approximate value during her underground imprisonment. Where did these come from? Cave system beneath the canyon. Been there for hours, working up courage to climb out. She spread her torn map across the table beside the ore samples. Red marks showed the cave entrance and the extensive tunnel network she'd discovered. Her surveying skills had turned a disaster into the greatest discovery of their lives. It's not just caves down there. Someone's been mining for months. The revelation hit Ransom like a physical blow. Devereaux hadn't just been stealing cattle. He'd been illegally extracting silver from beneath the coal property. The systematic theft was designed to drive them toward bankruptcy, while he plundered their mineral wealth. Equipment everywhere, smelting furnaces, ore carts, processed silver, ready for shipment. Callista had spent 2 days mapping the underground operation. Her mathematical precision revealed the scope of Devereaux's crime. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of silver extracted without permission or payment. "The mine shafts run directly under our ranch. He's been stealing from us for over a year." She showed him survey stakes bearing Devereaux's company markings. Official documents authorizing mining operations on public land that was actually private property. Forged paperwork that would crumble under federal investigation. "We have him," Ransom said. "Not yet. We need witnesses and official documentation." Callista's legal training from helping her father proved invaluable. Criminal prosecution required more than rock samples and accusations. They needed ironclad proof that would survive Devereaux's political connections. "I photographed everything: equipment, documents, processed ore." Her father's camera had survived the fall. She'd used every plate documenting the illegal mining operation. Images that would prove theft and fraud in any court of law. The photographs showed industrial-scale mining beneath their property, sophisticated equipment worth more than most ranches, professional operation that required significant investment and planning. How long has this been going on? Based on the tunnel size and ore processing, at least 18 months, maybe longer. The timeline matched their financial problems perfectly. Cattle began disappearing when the mining operation reached full production. Devereaux needed the land clear of witnesses while he extracted their silver. What about the stampede? Was that planned? Had to be. His men knew exactly where to spook the cattle. Professional timing. Callista's analytical mind reconstructed the entire conspiracy. The storm provided perfect cover for eliminating 2 inconvenient witnesses. Her survival was the flaw in an otherwise perfect crime. "We take this evidence to the federal marshal in Denver. Devereaux owns the local law. Deputy Blanchard won't help us. Federal crime, federal jurisdiction. He can't buy every lawman in the territory." They spent the evening organizing their evidence. Photographs, ore samples, forged documents, and detailed maps of the illegal mining operation. A presentation that would destroy Devereaux's empire. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Deputy Blanchard arrived with Federal Marshal Thompson from Denver. Someone had reported suspicious mining activity in the territory. "Mrs. Cole," Thompson said, "understand you have information about illegal mining operations." "More than information. Physical evidence." She presented their case with mathematical precision. Each piece of evidence supported the others in an unbreakable chain of proof. Thompson's expression grew grimmer as the scope of the crime became clear. This is extensive fraud, multiple federal violations. The marshal examined the ore samples and photographs with professional interest. His mining background let him assess the operation's true value. The numbers staggered him. Worth at least $500,000 in processed silver. Stolen from our property without permission or payment. Thompson studied the survey documents and property deeds. The legal case was airtight. Devereaux had committed multiple felonies under federal jurisdiction. We'll need you to guide us to the mining site. I know every tunnel and chamber, mapped the entire operation. Within hours, a federal posse surrounded Devereaux's illegal mining operation. They found exactly what Callista had documented. Equipment, processed silver, and forged documents proving systematic theft. Devereaux's arrest made headlines across the territory. His political connections couldn't protect him from federal prosecution. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Banks withdrawing the foreclosure, Thompson told them later. Your land's worth more than the mortgage 10 times over. The silver mine belonged legally to the Cole family. Devereaux's theft had ironically revealed the true source of their wealth. Justice served with mathematical precision. What happens now? Ransom asked. Now we become the richest ranchers in Colorado Territory, Callista replied. 6 months later, the Cole Ranch sparkled with prosperity. New fencing stretched across rolling pastures where prize cattle grazed on rich grass. The house had been expanded with a proper office for Callista's surveying business and a library filled with mathematics books. The silver mine operated under strict federal oversight. Professional miners extracted ore using proper techniques, while Callista monitored production with mathematical precision. Her calculations ensured maximum yield with minimum environmental damage. Monthly output report, she told Ransom, placing ledgers on his desk. The numbers seemed impossible even after months of wealth. $15,000 in pure silver extracted legally from their property. More money than most families saw in a lifetime. Their success had transformed the entire community. The mine employed 30 local men at fair wages. Businesses in Dusty Junction thrived as miners spent their earnings. Prosperity spread like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. Devereaux's conviction had exposed a network of corruption reaching across 3 territories. Federal investigators discovered dozens of fraudulent mining claims and stolen properties. Families who'd lost their land received compensation from seized assets. The Henderson place was returned to its original owners. The Morrison spread went back to the widow who'd been cheated out of her inheritance. Justice served with compound interest after years of waiting. Callista's reputation as a surveyor attracted clients from across Colorado Territory. Her mathematical precision and honest dealings made her the most sought-after land expert in the region. She charged fair prices and never cheated anyone. Could expand the business, Ransom suggested. Rather help people than get rich. We have enough money. Her childhood experiences with crooked surveyors shaped her professional ethics. Every client received honest service regardless of their ability to pay. Poor families got the same quality work as wealthy ranchers. The town's attitude toward Callista had shifted dramatically. Women who'd once mocked her appearance now sought her advice on business matters. Men who'd dismissed her intelligence now respected her professional expertise. Mrs. Cole knows more about land law than the territorial judge, people said. She'd proven that worth came from character and intelligence rather than physical appearance or social status. Her dignified response to early prejudice had earned genuine respect from former enemies. Ransom's love for his wife had deepened beyond mere partnership. Their marriage had evolved from desperate necessity to profound connection. They worked together as equals in all aspects of their lives. Never imagined being this happy, he told her one evening. Neither did I. Figured I'd spend my life alone teaching other people's children. Their success story became legend throughout the territory. The abandoned bride and struggling rancher who'd built an empire through intelligence and determination. Living proof that circumstances didn't determine destiny. On a warm Tuesday morning, Callista announced plans to visit Dusty Junction's mail station. She'd received a telegram about surveying work near the railroad depot. Ransom offered to accompany her, but she preferred to handle business matters independently. The mail station bustled with its usual activity. Travelers waited for westbound trains while merchants loaded freight cars with local goods. The platform where Callista had once sat, abandoned, now seemed like a distant memory. A familiar scene caught her attention. A young white woman sat alone on the same bench where Callista had waited 6 months earlier. Her travel dress was clean, but worn. Her expression showed the particular despair of someone with nowhere to go. The mail clerk's loud voice carried across the platform. He explained the situation to anyone who'd listen. Another abandoned mail-order bride. Her intended groom had rejected her for being too plain and skinny. "Got no money for a ticket home," the clerk announced. "Probably end up begging in the streets." Callista approached the bench with confident steps. Her elegant dress and composed manner marked her as a woman of substance. The abandoned bride looked up with hollow eyes that expected more mockery. "Difficult situation," Callista said kindly. "Yes, ma'am. Don't know what I'll do now." "Mind if I sit? This bench holds special memories for me." The young woman nodded gratefully for any human compassion. Callista settled beside her and opened a leather portfolio containing business documents. "I'm Callista Cole. My husband and I own the silver mine outside town. Sarah Mitchell from Ohio. Supposed to marry a rancher named Williams. Let me guess. He took one look and decided you weren't what he expected." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. The casual cruelty of her rejection still stung despite 2 days of processing the humiliation. "Said I was too thin and plain. Wouldn't be suitable for ranch work." "His loss. You traveled halfway across the country on faith alone. That takes considerable courage." Callista remembered her own feelings on this same bench, the shame, despair, and desperate hope that someone might see her worth beyond superficial appearance. "Do you have any skills or education?" "Taught school for 3 years. No arithmetic and basic bookkeeping." "Perfect. My surveying business needs a qualified assistant, someone who understands mathematics and can handle detailed record keeping." Sarah's expression shifted from despair to cautious hope. Employment meant survival and perhaps the chance to build a new life. "The position includes room and board at our ranch, fair wages and opportunity to learn land surveying if you're interested." "You'd trust me, a stranger? 6 months ago, I sat on this exact bench in your exact situation. A good man gave me a chance when everyone else saw only my appearance." Callista helped Sarah gather her belongings. The young woman's grateful tears reminded her of her own transformation from abandoned bride to respected businesswoman. Ready for a new beginning? They walked toward Callista's elegant carriage. The same townspeople who'd once mocked her now tipped their hats respectfully. Her journey from outcast to pillar of the community was complete. At the ranch house, Ransom welcomed Sarah warmly. He understood exactly what his wife was doing and why. Their success meant nothing if they couldn't help others escape similar circumstances. That evening, Callista and Ransom sat on their front porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Their cattle grazed peacefully in pastures they now owned free and clear. The silver mine would provide security for generations. "Think she'll work out?" Ransom asked. "Intelligence and determination matter more than appearance. Sarah has both." Their story had come full circle. Love born from necessity had grown into genuine partnership. Wealth built on justice would continue helping others find their own paths to success.